waiting for you to start the meeting.
President? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council Special Conference Meeting. Mr. President, in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice has been provided to the Star Ledger, the Jersey Journal, and to the public at large establishing the date, time, and location of this meeting. May I have a roll call of those present, please?
Present. I thought you had called.
James, absent.
I'm the press. Relax.
You are the
I'm the
press, I
last
know
one.
that.
I'm the last one to go.
James Phil Jenkins,
Present.
McCallum, absent. Osborne,
Present.
Quintana,
Here.
Ramos,
Here.
Trump, absent. President Amador.
Yes, here.
Mr. President, on the agenda, beginning on page 2, ordinance on public hearing, second reading and final passage. 6PSNFA is an ordinance further amending ordinance 6PSNFI, adopted on August 7, 2013, for the Second Amendment to the Newark River Public Access and Redevelopment Plan by revising certain requirements relating to lots 30 and 46 in Block 1. Is there anyone present that wishes to be heard on this ordinance? No one appearing? No one appearing? Motion to close the public hearing and adopt. Council of the whole.
No, I moved it.
I second.
Janie Phil Jenkins. Gonzalez.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James, absent. James Phil Jenkins,
Yes.
McCallum, absent. Osborne,
Yes.
Quintana,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump, absent. President Amador.
Yes.
7R, Resolution 7R1A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for a temporary emergency appropriation for the municipal election. Council of the whole?
Recreation.
Louis, your mic.
Why is it 1,600,000? Is that the normal?
That's the normal. Yeah, actually it's down slightly.
It's a lot of money.
It's down slightly because of some of the changes that we made to how we proceed.
Okay.
I can sponsor a lot of kids to go to college.
Roll call?
Yes.
James, absent.
A lot of kids go.
James Phil Jenkins,
Yes.
McCallum, absent. Osborne,
Yes.
Quintana,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
absent. President Amador.
Yes.
Mr. Clerk,
Yes, sir.
just for the record, what does this $1.6 million include? Is that staff? Is that
Machine.
It pays for the voting machines, we pay for the rental of the polling sites, we pay for the poll workers that work on election night. We provide materials such as flags for the election, and there's the printing of the ballot that has to be done. It's just a host of operations that are part of this election process.
Yeah, Mr. President. Is this the same company that does the county elections too? I mean, these are the same machines from the county?
Yes, these are, we are renting from the county. We pay the county to provide the machines and the polling sites, and we pay for all of that.
Right. Okay.
Roll call? We did? All right.
It's done.
Resolution 7R2B is an authorizing resolution. What did I just do? Oh, sorry. Resolution 2A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. B is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. C is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. D is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. E is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. F is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. G is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment. H is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for an investigation of an area in need of redevelopment. Through 7R to H. Council of the Whole?
Mr. President,
Councilman Ramos?
I had the opportunity yesterday to talk briefly to the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, Mr. Garcia, who explained to me that the reason why they're asking for all these studies is because of the fact that we no longer have the UEZ program, and that these actions are needed in order to potentially consider the issuance of, tax abatement for proposed projects. And I did express to him that I was aware that there may be a project that could be proposed on the lots that are connected to the North Ward, and just based on the preliminary conversations that I had regarding that project, I do have a number of concerns regarding the height and density. This is the site that is on the where the Spanish Tavern is, Spanish Manor is, off of Heller Parkway, and Mr. Garcia did express to me that the fact that we are conducting these preliminary studies that will be referred to the planning board does not impact the allowable height that is currently allowed in this area. So I just want to note that, because I do have some concerns. Potentially, this isn't even a proposal yet, but just based on the preliminary designs that I saw concerning the height and proposed density for this Heller Parkway site. But I do have no problem with proceeding with the investigation and the study.
Well, I also met with the deputy mayor briefly, because most of these, or a lot of these, items are in the East Ward, and the explanation that I received was basically the same. But my concern goes into some of these projects are either almost finished or finished, and now there's a potential for a tax abatement to be received if if they do feel like they should request one. My concern is, once the project is finished, what is the possibility of hiring Newark residents to work on these projects? It's over.
Slim to none.
It's over. Once we have this done and approved, and in looking at some of these addresses, I know for a fact that some of these, the projects are almost finished, if not finished. Now they're coming for a tax abatement. Where is the commitment from these developers that they would hire Newark residents to work in those developments?
Mr. President, if I may add to that, is how is it that we are determining that the area is in need of redevelopment when the area has already been redeveloped? Say, if we have a project there already, the area has already been developed, so why are we determining now that the area needs to be redeveloped?
Can I make a suggestion? Why not, this is not going to hurt anyone by deferring this action on these items, and have a lengthy discussion with the Director of Economic Development next, when is the next available date?
Is he here today, though? Can he
The
address some of these
pre-meeting next
questions?
Tuesday, no?
Yeah. But can he address any of these issues or
Oh,
something?
but there's a lot of projects involved in here, and they're all in different wards. For example, on 7R1A, you have the east, the north,
The south.
the south, all together. And I need to know if these projects, especially in the East Ward, have been completed or not. And we need some explanation as to the fact that if they have been completed, what's the point of having a law that calls for Newark residents to work on these projects if they've been done already. So there is no benefit to us.
In addition to the law that says the Newark residents should be working on these kind of projects, what is the purpose of having a Newark Municipal Council vote on redevelopment plans, which is the state statute, and that we're governed under?
Good morning.
In order to transfer land or dispose of land if you're going to circumvent the legislative body.
If I may?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Council President. Evans Anyanwu, Deputy Legislative Director for Economic Development. With respect to the studies, these are just a request for studies. My knowledge is this development hasn't started in these areas. And as you guys pointed out correctly, we do have a first source ordinance where we require all redevelopers to make best efforts to make sure that they employ residents of the city of Newark. That is still in effect, and that's one of the things that we require of redevelopers. So to the extent that these developments hire Newark residents to facilitate development, that is something that's required in our ordinance by way of the first source ordinance.
Is there any reason why your microphone is going in and out?
Yeah, these mics are just,
Yeah, the first source ordinance requiring them to use best efforts to first employ Newark residents is still in effect. And what we're asking is just for the study to go forward. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to the extent that there's some issues, but I recommend and request respectfully that we not defer this at this time.
Well, the issue that we all brought up is the fact that some of these projects have already been completed.
can you point to which
Yeah,
lots?
I'm not
103
familiar.
Jackson Street, for example. Is it completed?
That wouldn't make
Jackson
sense
Street,
that they're asking for a study on a site that's already been developed.
103 Jackson Street?
94 Jackson, 92 Jackson, 98 Jackson. If I recall, this is an area that has not been, that is already completed. It's a building. It's an apartment building. Is that true?
That is not my understanding.
Is this the parking lot?
On Jackson? Let me get our planner.
Is Carmelo here, or I haven't seen him in a while?
I can get that information for you, but my understanding is that these particular lots that we're requesting for investigation have not, development has not been completed in them. But I can, within a few minutes, get you the confirmation.
Look,
Carmelo here?
Yeah, Mr. President, one suggestion I do have is that this is a very large number of properties and lots that you're asking permission to conduct, studies in, and the fact that you don't have, information when the council asks questions about these different lots, it's concerning, because you're asking us to give you the authorization to conduct these areas of need studies in at least 30 to 40 lots. So your department should have at least some basic information to, in this case, dispute the fact that the councilman is saying that there was a project that had been completed on one of these lots. So that lack of information could put in jeopardy action on these items.
And respectfully, Councilman, you stated, perfectly what it is. It's an investigation to see if the area is in need of investigation, and that investigation may turn up negative. Maybe that area is not in need of
If
investigation.
he's saying that there was a project that had been completed in one of these lots, it's important that the department have access to photos or backup information to dispute that, because otherwise, it could be true. There could have been a project that was completed and you're asking for a study after the fact. So,
Without trying to sound very critical for the 1,000th time on this issue, where is the intent to partner with us before this stuff comes up for us to look at? If it wasn't for the fact that I asked to see the director yesterday, and all of a sudden I had these questions, there was never any attempt to reach out to my office. And if you look at, most of this stuff is in the East Ward. I don't know if these projects have been completed or not completed. I don't have any information for me to make a sound decision in terms of approving or not these requests. So what happened to the intent of partnering with us and say, hey, this is all the information in the East Ward, all the projects that are potentially coming up. So we're taking a step ahead of everything, and we're providing legislation that allows us to give a tax abatement eventually to these folks ahead of time. So I know I don't have to ask those questions when I come to the meeting. And these folks the same way. What happened to that intent? And we talked about this 4 years ago.
And that's correct. And ultimately, your vote is the vote of the will of people, and it's very important that your vote is done by way of an informed decision, and that informed decision absolutely requires that you know what's going on. But this is just an investigation. It's a request for the investigation. It's going to come back to the council. We're very happy that you were able to talk to the deputy mayor yesterday, and it was my understanding that he explained the intent of these particular investigations to you. It's not the intent of economic and housing development to leave the council out of the process, because ultimately your vote is the vote of your constituents, is the vote of an expression of the will of the people, and it must be done in an informed manner. But to the extent that we can let this investigation go forward, the investigation may show that these areas may not need redevelopment.
Either way, you're not going to be able to leave us out of the process.
No, can't leave you out of the process.
Mr.
We
President,
have to vote. Councilman Osborne first.
Let me ask you, who's in monitor or enforcing the first source ordinance?
That's Office of Affirmative Action. That's David Muhammad.
David Mountain.
Councilman Gonzalez.
yes, I take exception to the characterization of this is just an investigation. I believe that every decision that we take here is important, and I am not going to just buy that this is just an investigation. We have to make a determination whether we proceed or not, and I believe that it's very lame on your part to say that this is just an investigation. I believe that we have to be much more prepared when we come to the podium to explain every one of these projects. The last time that we had someone in front of us upstairs, it was a disaster. They say the attorney for the developer has to explain to him what the project was. So I believe that we need to be more cognizant of the fact that we are, let's say, on the record explaining the projects, and we are not doing a great job explaining those projects.
Mr. President, time and time again, I've raised the issue, as well as my council colleagues, that we act in good faith, that the information that we're being presented with from directors, business administrator, anyone standing in front of that podium, that we're getting enough information to make an informed decision. But also that the people who stand at that podium understand the responsibility of the legislative body. Councilman Amador, the reason why he was saying yes to these, because he said that it was to ensure the residents the opportunity to apply for tax abatement in the future if they were eligible. That's why I voted yes. And yet again, we get misinformation. This is no different than when we got information regarding the medical benefits. This is no different than when we got information regarding Uber. I mean, at some point in time, the frustration of legislative representatives of the people of the city of Newark has to come to an end. And it won't come to an end because you can't expect mutual respect from the administration in regards to these type of issues. So, my council colleagues, I would respectfully second Council President Amador's request to defer because of the simple fact it doesn't take that long to do a redevelopment study. But more importantly, just because of the mere fact that the redevelopment plan, some properties may have been done or finished or completed, is troubling and disrespectful to say the least. And I just want to say, I want to see the records from the Affirmative Action Department on what job sites they've gone to in order to say that they're enforcing the Newark First Source agreement. I'd like to see the payroll monitor log sheets that say that there have been jobs and that these people have Newarkers working on them.
Councilwoman, I'll make sure that information gets to you.
Before you answer, my concern is this. You don't get these addresses out of the blue. The developer must have come to you and it must have said, or to your department, and must have said, we're going to develop this particular area. And you take note of that, and you have these addresses together with the intent on the part of the developer. So you must have known, when I say you, I mean the department, must have known for a while that these areas are going to be developed eventually. So the first reaction that I would have once the developer comes to talk to you is have the developer meet with a council person from the area, or you inform the council person from the area that there's an intent to develop this area. Therefore, we're going to send this information to the city council for approval. But that's not the case. That's like we're already 3 steps into the process, and now we find out by looking at the agenda. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had asked to go downstairs and meet with the director, I would never know.
Yeah, Mr.
What kind of projects do we have for these addresses?
Well,
Are they, do they fit into what Newark is looking for in terms of the future? Or it's based on a decision that was made by 1 or 2 individuals in this city? That's the point.
Mr. President, I just want to reiterate some of the points that were raised before. When I saw the agenda, I also reached out to the Deputy Mayor. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and I noticed that the 10 lots that are being identified in the North Ward were part of a discussion that my office had, and I had seen some preliminary designs on a proposed development project, and that was the reason why I reached out to his office to identify what actions would be taken as a result of this study. So we went through that process, and I agree with my colleagues that prior to these individual properties popping up on the agenda for a need study, historically, there's been at least some kind of presentation or conversation with the ward council person with backup information, with photos of the individual properties so that you can see the justification for a redevelopment need study. And I don't think that happened in this case. And there's a large number of properties that you're asking for permission from this council to conduct a study with. And I think that's the rub here. You know, I'm familiar with these 10 properties because I visited, I went out there, I know the properties very well, but when you have 25 in the instance of the East Ward and there's no backup information, you know, that causes some concern. So I don't think the council's trying to be an obstructionist in the process, it's just
Not at all.
there isn't enough information to make an informed, you know, decision up here. I know on the 10 in the North Ward, yes, but there's a lot more than just 10 properties on these individual resolutions.
Can I ask a very simple question? If we defer this to Tuesday, what is the negative side of delaying it by a week?
Well,
There is none.
the most important thing is that, as a representative of the people of Newark, that you make an informed decision. So there,
We don't have an informed decision.
exactly. So
We can't make an informed decision.
So, and we're not requiring you to rush it. So to the extent that the council believes that they need more information, that they need, in order to make an informed decision, it'd be best for the
Okay,
matter.
can we defer this to Tuesday? And you give us the information on all these lots for each one of us?
Not a problem.
If we don't have his permission to defer, we can defer.
But we have to change your.
I would like to have this vote, too.
Voted, then we voted.
No, we didn't vote on any of these.
We didn't vote on it.
Thank you.
Mr. President, may I
We'll
respond?
get you an,
And we have the information in terms of what projects are gonna go per item, each item?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. President, before we vote, may I ask that we defer this not to Tuesday, but to the Wednesday regular meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Today is not gonna make a difference.
Now vote.
Roll call to defer.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Osborne,
Yes.
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
President Amador.
Yes.
7R4A is an authorizing resolution for the Department of Finance reducing the interest rates charged on delinquent property taxes, municipal tax liens. 4B is a authorizing,
That.
Second.
It's the tax amnesty for, it's giving people who have, been trying to pay their property taxes that have been going up. And it's giving them breathing room in order to be able to wipe away the penalties, but, and also gives that city the opportunity to show some, attempt, some concern to the residents, but also collect the money in the meantime.
But this, Mr. President, this one here is for only city liens. Let's say
No.
if you have a lien that is owned by a third party, that is not affected.
Well, actually, first of all, my name is Ernest, and I'm the tax collector. You are right, Councilman. This is an amnesty program reducing interest charge on delinquent taxes and municipal liens, not third-party investor liens. They are not included. So it's municipal.
The majority of the liens that are open are normally third-party liens.
Municipal liens that got struck off to the city of Newark in the tax sale.
How, let's say the majority, my question is the majority of the liens that are open normally owned by third-party lien holders?
Yes, the majority of them. Now, when we have the tax sales, the ones that do not get bought by third party get struck to the.
Yeah, but normally since you get 18% on these liens, normally people would love to invest in these liens because of the return.
You mean the city owns the liens? The third party liens, they get bidded on.
Yes, but normally it's like 13, more than 14%. It's normally 18% that they make.
The municipal liens are automatically 18%.
What about the others?
The third party liens, they bid on them. They can go all the way down to 0%, and then they will offer a
The
premium.
range of what we have.
Most of the liens that we have, the municipal liens are all 18%.
The private ones.
The private ones, it vary. I don't know the
You don't
group, how many that's 8%, how many 2%. But they bid on them, and that's how they determine the interest rate.
So this affects only the municipal ones.
Yes, municipal liens and delinquent taxes It's some people that owe delinquent taxes. And the amnesty program will start on March 1st and end on May 31st. And the administration wants to aid and assist struggling delinquent taxpayers a way to pay their taxes without their property being included in the annual tax sale. Because if they do not pay their taxes, they will be included in the tax sale. And that's the third party. They can be a third party lien or a municipal lien. People owing municipal liens, the amnesty program will assist those taxpayers by eliminating the interest and reducing significantly the tax liability owed to the city of Newark and avoid foreclosure on these taxpayers.
I'll second it.
What do I second?
It's already second?
Yes.
Okay, then I third it.
Roll call.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 McCallum,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
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 President Amador.
Yes.
7R4B is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Finance approving the loan and escrow agreements for installation of standby emergency generators for the Wayne Pumping Station. This is a $5 million project. The companion to that is lost. Is 7R4C, which is the $5 million, confirming the bond sale itself for the $5 million. Council of the whole?
Move it.
Second.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
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 Mr. President, before we go to the next item, I'd like to ask the council for a brief executive session so that we can discuss this with Corporation Council.
Yes.
Yeah.
To discuss.
The settlement of labor appeal.
Yes, executive session.
Council of the whole to go into executive session.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
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 President Amador.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into a brief executive session. I ask that if you're not involved in this discussion, please step out into the hall.
The things that happen.
The clock is back.
And stuff.
The
They
clock is
send a
back.
form letter.
And the clock that was in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Councilman, we were instructed to put the clock back.
That's when I was talking with Municipal. It was like, they send a form. They send
Mr. President, we are out of executive session. We have before us, you have before you 7R6A. This is a settlement of labor appeal. Councilman Gonzalez wishes to move.
No, that's it. No, someone, yes, I move it, yes.
Second.
Roll call.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Wakefield Jenkins,
yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Osborne. Ramos,
Yes.
absent, President Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. President, through the clerk, I just want to make sure I wanted the earlier votes before I came in to be recorded as yes. Just want to apologize, but I was at the My Brother's Keeper program at Prudential Center, where over 1,500 people are right now interviewing for jobs with 41 employers. It's an all-day program, so if anyone's seeing this live, you still have time. If you're a male between the ages of 18 and 24, please go down to the Prudential Center. If you do not have a resume, they have a resume workshop. If you do not have the right clothes on, they have suits, ties, and shoes. So we encourage anyone who hears this to come down if they need employment. Thank you.
Who are some of the companies that are down there?
Prudential, FedEx, NBA. Yes, it's huge. Yes.
To the added starter page, 7R6B is a ratifying, authorizing, and amending resolution for the Department of Law for Professional Services contract. This is the first amendment to the agreement to provide legal services as special tax counsel. Councilman, this is the one you wish to move, second by Councilman Gonzalez? Wakefield Jenkins?
On what?
The added starter? No? What's it you?
I thought that was Gonzalez and James.
James?
There was the settlement.
So which had to start,
I
Moved.
moved.
Yes,
And I second it.
James.
yeah.
Roll call.
Isn't it the same thing?
And
Isn't it the same thing?
No, this is the
Yes.
second item.
James,
yes.
Wakefield Jenkins.
Yes.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne. Yes. Quintana. Yes. Ramos,
Yes.
absent, President Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. President, I just want to name just a little bit more of the companies. We have Audible, New Jersey Transit, Port Authority, Blink, ShopRite, Prudential, Uber, Farmland, Horizon, Macy's, Lyft, Aramark, New Jersey Pack, United, T-Mobile, Port Authority, New York, New Jersey, St. Michael's Medical Center, and the Marriott.
I asked the clerk, but I'm going to put it on the record that in 2010, I think we had a Mr. Faella and NEDC, by which the city was going to receive some property back that had been illegally transferred to NEDC. And one of the conditions was, or one of the properties was the parking lot that is operated by Prudential on Washington Street. And pursuant to that agreement, Mr. Faella was supposed to, or NEDC was supposed to continue receiving some payments, I believe, for 4 or 5 years. And after that period, the city was supposed to get the money that was being paid by Prudential for the parking. And my question is whether we have received the money that we're entitled to pursuant to that settlement. And I requested of the clerk a copy of the settlement agreement so that we can review it and make a determination as to whether we are receiving the money that we're entitled.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, we are now in the conference meeting.
Yep,
Councilman Ramos?
Oh, let's roll call council of the whole to adjourn the voting meeting. Okay, hold on.
Gonzalez,
No, hold on.
Hold on. The Director of Economic
Yeah,
Development.
you gotta, if you want to
Carmel?
speak, you gotta move up.
Good morning, Council President and members, esteemed members of this council. So I was advised there was another meeting with DEP, and I was advised that there was an issue with respect to the first step, usually in the request for an area in need of redevelopment to conduct a blight study. As you know, once we lost our UEZ designation, one of the requirements that these redevelopers need to pursue is a blight study to be conducted, which you would authorize to go to the Central Planning Board for an investigation to happen where an area would be investigated to determine if a redevelopment of the current zoning or amended zoning laws should be necessary in order to catalyze, revitalize, and redevelop that area. So because we lost our UZ designation, previous to that, many of the redevelopers who were seeking a tax abatement would not have to, go through that process. Now, many of them have to do that because of the fact that you don't have the UZ designation. Furthermore, as you know, we have a comprehensive redevelopment and repurposing of our assets plan to look at different areas within the city of Newark that we can focus on revitalizing those corridors with anchor future developments, whether it be the mixed use, whether it be a commercial, but something that is going to anchor that area. So for instance, a prime example is like, South Lincoln Park, that area there where M&M is building a future project on Parkhurst. Part of their application, part of their project in their feasibility analysis for the economics to work, for them to do that project, they will require a tax abatement. So you have a few, redevelopers in that area who would be impacted. But unless we can get your authorization as the city council to just trigger that first step, we can't proceed. And all that is allowing for a study to be conducted. That's pretty much what the first step is in the process.
And you're saying everybody has a copy of the proposals for what you were just talking about with Parkhurst, South Lincoln Park area?
So in particular, like let's say that project, Councilman Amador is aware of that project. So yes, he would know exactly the 76 units that are being pursued there to be redeveloped. But again, part of their capital stack and in their feasibility analysis, it's required for them to have a tax abatement because, as you know, Councilwoman, without the but-for, these projects, many of them, would not be stimulated to be done and would not allow for the finances to be there in order to complete the project.
So do you have one for the Central Ward?
So in the list, let me just get the agenda real quickly.
It should be right there in front. Trish?
The James Street area, the Washington Street area?
So that's a great one. With the James Street area, that's 33 Washington, for instance. Miles Berger is redeveloping or actually rehabbing his project into a WeWorks, Bellworks, which in that case will require as part of his capital stack a tax abatement. So that we can't just do spot zoning. We won't do spot zoning. So we won't just zero in on 33 Washington. You have to look at the other lots within that surrounding area in order to say, okay, this makes sense. There are other lots that could be blighted, but the premise of that one, the origin of that one is 33 Washington, which is,
I'm
yeah.
familiar with that piece of property, but
I know, that's why, yeah.
I'm asking the question, the representation about redevelopment going on or future redevelopment plans in the Central Ward. Do you have a date in mind that you and I can meet to discuss those issues?
Yes, why don't we do Monday? You have the pipeline that I sent you with all the projects that are happening, so if you want, we could do it Monday. Give me a time on Monday, and we'll make it happen.
We can see if Monday can work, but I would like to set that up within the week. Thank you.
Fabulous. So, and a lot of these, as I noted, like that's a prime example, 33 Washington. The other ones, which I spoke to Councilman Amador about, pertain to Mr. Jacinto Rodriguez, who has 4 projects, that he wants to move forward, which is tied to the Badger and Ridgewood project in the South Ward, because they're going to be pursuing a RAB in order to maximize, the capital stack. That's why they're pursuing, a tax abatement for those 4 projects in the East Ward. And part of that would be tied to them pursuing that RAB to develop the first 60 units of Phase 1 in the South Ward on Badger and Ridgewood. So without that study being conducted, unfortunately, they can't proceed. So they're sort of at a stalemate and at a standstill when it comes to their developments, because the but-for in their capital stack is necessary, which is usually the tax abatement that's a part of it.
Mr. President, if I may.
Or RAB.
Director, it's great when you come in front of us because you have the information.
Thank you, sir.
Provide us with let's say, the necessary information that is going to allow us to make a decision. However, when some of your people come in front of us, they don't have the information. They come and they are more or less guessing and giving us, we provide information later. I believe that we need to have people from your staff that are going to come in front of us that have the information and that can deliver that information the way you do, because otherwise we will have to make decisions deferring items that could be moved if we had the information.
And that's why I rushed back, Councilman. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard, and I apologize. Unfortunately, not everyone can be a savant in understanding and retaining and really conveying to you what we're doing, but I thought that my acting Director of Planning and Zoning would be able to convey to you exactly what we know we're working on and working towards to accomplish that would meet your goals and the administration's goals. But all of these are triggered by a development project that's being worked on, and we don't do spot zoning. So therefore, we look at the entire area. We have our outside professional planners go out, conduct the investigation, come back and tell us, yes, it is feasible for us to do a redevelopment plan, or what they would allow, they may not need a redevelopment plan. They may just use the area in need of rehabilitation that the entire city is governed under, and then they can go forward with an application for a tax abatement. But the blight study is still required. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you one more question. You said 33 Washington was being done with a tax abatement?
As part of the rehabilitation that Mr. Berger is pursuing, that is in his capital stack, yes.
It is subject to the first source ordinance then?
That is correct. Everyone is subject to the first sourcing ordinance. We actually include that in the financial agreement. You guys have been very supportive in working with us to reform the tax abatement process. So when we get to the financial agreement with all the steps that we're doing, we include that as part of it. It's a must.
Is it also prevailing rates?
Excuse me?
Is there also a prevailing rate attached to the tax abatement?
No, as part of the negotiations, that would not, like a PLA rate, is that what you're referencing? Yeah, it would not apply. It all depends on what subsidies are being infused into their project. So if they're getting any federal, state, HMFA, LIHTC, funding of that magnitude, or Grow New Jersey, if they're receiving any of those, yes, then that would apply.
But
even CDBG.
But they are using Newark residents right now on the construction that's being done.
They must, yes, sir. Yeah, and so we've been working where the first step when we meet with the redeveloper who's applying for a tax abatement that we reformed it to be, is that we would have Deputy Mayor Rockman, Tom from Newark Works, and David Muhammad from the Affirmative Action Office at the table from the first step, so that they're well aware of our commitment. It's not a ceremonial thing that we talk about. It's a commitment on the 40%, first sourcing best efforts.
Mr. President, Carmelo.
Yes.
I love when you say things like that, because it just really makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. First of all, you and I both know that the monitoring that's supposed to go on with those first source agreements, I can tell you 10 sites that had development and there are no Newarkers working on them, okay?
So that would be out of my purview, but I will talk to my colleague about that.
I'm saying, I already requested the list of the prevailing wage, but more importantly, the timesheets and the list of personnel that's been working on these sites. But one of the things that you stated in regards to the 33 Washington Street, a lot of these things have to be redone because we changed the way the tax abatements formula is. So the capital stack is not working for a lot of these developers. That's why the Iberia site is not being done. So what are we doing about that? Because when the council voted to include that 20% in, it has brought development to a standstill. So what are we doing in order? So is this going to help us be able to afford a 33 Washington Street to proceed? Because right now, based on the fact that they were already in the pipeline, but the ordinance became effective January 1st, 2018, there's a gap financially in order to be able to have this go to fruition. So is this going to resolve that issue? Because you and I had this conversation.
So, two things. Number one is because 33 Washington is a commercial project, it wouldn't impact, the IZO would not impact that one. But
the tax abatement did.
Yeah, but it's not, the IZO doesn't kick in with respect to the 33 Washington on the 20%. I'm speaking about with residential, right? But the key is that they're all now, the new thing is a RAB. So a RAB reduces your debt within that capital stack. So now they're all pursuing a RAB, or you want to call it a redevelopment area bond or a revenue allocation bond. But the fact of the matter is that the RAB is helping many of these redevelopers build their capital stack now because they're recognizing the importance of that RAB, which in the past the city's only issued one or two to my knowledge. So that's what they're pursuing right now. So that's the new, in the formula, that's the new mechanism to assist in sort of balancing out for residential projects or mixed-use projects the inclusionary zoning 20% requirement on the affordable housing. And don't forget that they have two other alternatives. It's not just the 20% being embedded into the project, but they can pay the $50,000 payment in lieu per unit on top of that, which I think is the more innovative way to go, and I've kind of convinced a few redevelopers to now do this and explore it further, is the third track. The third track, they can take properties in the West Ward and the South Ward, affecting both Councilman McCollum and Councilman James, and really take 10 properties at, let's say, $2 a square foot, at the city conveying it to them, and
$4 or $4.
Or $4, the city, $4, $2 is affordable, it's if you're not for profit, right? So $4 per square foot. So let's just do one quick hypothetical formula. They can take 10 properties in the West Ward at $100,000 that they would invest each one, sell it at cost to a new homeowner, whether it's a single, 2, 3 family home, right? Sell it at cost as a payment in lieu for the 20% that they would have to embed into their formula. So if my 20% requirement cost me $5 million or $3 million, and now the city says, hey, we want to stimulate more redevelopment from you guys in the West and South Ward, in the depressed and distressed areas, take 10 properties. We're going to give you 10 properties. You're going to invest $100,000 to $150,000 of your own money, right, which is about $1.2 million, $1.3 million, and then you're going to sell those properties at your cost to a Newarker, which is tied to the municipal employee program or tied to a first home ownership program, first time home ownership program. That's the real ideal way that they should be pursuing it, because it's very innovative, but because it's new, many of them are hesitant and they have their reservations. But we've been going through the exercise, and I think a lot of them are liking that option.
It's not that innovative because Councilman Amador and Councilman Quintana will tell you, and I see Councilman Walker sitting out there in the out there in the audience, we did that before. When there was a lot of development going on in the North Ward and the East Ward, Mr. Fiella and then Dr. Allen made it so that you had to purchase property in the Central, South, and West. That's why we were able to build 10,000 units of affordable and low-income housing in those areas at the same time as the East Ward and the North Ward were going ahead, because it was felt at that time that the East Ward was the hot area and North Ward. So I'm glad to see that that program is being redone again, but
Thank you.
it's called something new, but it's been done in the city of Newark, and it's something that does work.
Say we rude, but I think that the market confidence is the first time in Newark's history the market confidence is at its strongest that it's ever been. And it is the first time that you have $4 billion in real dollars, real time, in a pipeline of redevelopment projects that are happening in the city. So I think there's a big difference when it comes to that. And like I said, I'm certain that more and more redevelopers are going to like that option, and it's going to give us a greater hook in stimulating them to invest in the West and South Ward where we need it most. So I thank you, council members, council president.
On the 7R2 that we voted to defer, including the rest of them, I'm familiar with the project in East Ward that we have before us. The only reason why I asked for deferment was because we have some properties in the North Ward included in there, but if the councilman from the North Ward has no objections to it, I would like to reconsider the vote and vote to move it.
Yeah, Mr. President. You know, I expressed earlier what my concerns were. I did reach out to Carmelo yesterday when I saw that these properties, 10 properties in the North Ward were identified. You know, I have no issue with proceeding with the study, but I do have concerns about some of the preliminary designs that I have seen regarding this proposed project as far as height and density. So as long as this action does not negate the height requirement for this particular area, and if the developer that's looking at these lots has a serious project in the future, you know, I want to make sure that that developer has to go through the proper approval process that's going to involve, you know, community input as it relates to the height and proposed density. I have no problem moving this forward as it relates to the study.
And Councilman, you've expressed your concern, and I agree with you on that. And I've already advised that redeveloper that we are not, under no certain terms, committing to anything. At the same time, the scalability of the project, you know, requires that community input, as you've echoed. And we intend to, the first step would be having a community outreach meeting with yourself and the mayor to kind of pulse whether or not the community wants something to that magnitude. So it doesn't, and I promise you that we will not. This is just a study to look at the area and determine what should go there. Does the current plans and zoning laws permit or are allowed to what we want to get done or not? So that's pretty much what we want to accomplish.
And I just want to add to that this particular area has a mixture of old industrial and also some residential. So it is an appropriate area to conduct a redevelopment study. So I just want to put that on the record.
And thank you for the reconsideration, Council President and Council Ramos. Thank you, and all the council members.
Director, by using the RABs as a development tool, the city is going to receive much less income that it would have received otherwise. How are we compensating that loss of income?
I love when you ask these questions because we think like you now in the sense of on the CPA and legal side of it. So we are going to be amending our zoning or our tax abatement laws again with respect to percentage, right? Right now, for instance, one of the things that we talked about is how can we get a greater percentage in the administration city's fees when they're pursuing that. So we are right now currently looking at the language that's necessary legally so that we can include that in the financial agreements moving forward. One of the other aspects that you'll know about is that, you know, there's a 10 cents on an industrial per square foot in the tax abatement ordinance. You know, it's $1.50. On the commercial is 10 cents. We need to increase those that per square foot. That's crazy. So we are exploring that now and looking at formulaically, because you have to do it by formula, what is reasonable for us to include in the financial agreements. So that all comes later on in the financial agreements. You can embed all of those percentages and costs to the redeveloper. Just like we're also extrapolating, recouping our funds that we would expend on the planner and on legal for that process to be done.
Looking forward to review them.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, council members. Have a great day.
Can we reconsider 7R2?
This is a vote to reconsider 7R2A through 7R2H.
No.
No?
I have no information about the,
Okay, so which, let's do them individually.
no, he has to give us in writing.
It's 7R2.
Only 7R2.
7R2, which is the Northward properties that we talked about. 114, 128 Monroe Street, it's the hotel, and the properties for M&M, which I have met with. So I'm happy with 7R2.
7R2A.
2A.
7R2A,
That's the only one we're
Hey, this
considering.
one.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
and the others through H, nothing? They will be stay
Others will
deferred?
stay,
We'll stay
Third-
deferred.
well, the others will stay deferred until we get the information.
Okay.
Just do this one.
So this is all vote to reconsider 7R2A.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Yes. Ramos,
Yes.
Yes,
Now the vote to, under reconsideration?
move it.
Out?
Second.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. Ramos,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now, roll call council to hold to adjourn the voting portion of this meeting?
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Yes.
We are now in the conference portion of this meeting. Would Mr. Thomas please come to the microphone? This is a discussion of the garbage collection, recycling, and street sweeping, and tree stumps.
Good morning,
Good morning, Mr.
Director
Thomas.
Thomas, Newark Department of Public Works.
Before you start, Mr. Thomas, do you have any pass outs for us? Do you
I'm
have
gonna
any
pass out,
pass-
I'm gonna pass the city clerk, but there's no copies. This stuff is in reference to the street sweeper. I'm preparing a booklet to give y'all, so I'm just gonna go over
That's what I'm
some
saying. You
bullets.
have a booklet so we
No.
can follow
Not yet, I have one for y'all, but I don't have it with me.
all this big buildup about wait till February 24th and you don't have anything for us to,
Well, actually, there's been numbers and things like that, that's what we had to wait for. I didn't wanna rush and didn't answer the numbers, answer the questions. Nothing intentional. You'll have it from me. Did a nice booklet. Nice booklet. But when I pass them out, I'm gonna speak on this briefly, is I have a map, my GPS printouts, and turn by turn portion in regards to street sweeping, but I'm not gonna start with street sweeping next, but I brought this for y'all. But it's gonna be in the booklet as well. What I want to talk about is basically our goals for refuse collection. As you know, we working diligently to find innovative ways to enhance the refuse collection process moving forward. We plan to improve our daily operations and procedures, focusing on cleanliness, collection, communication with our residents. Our utmost goal is to ensure that residents of the city of Newark are receiving optimal services and ultimately clean our city streets, parks, lots, etc. One thing that we propose for our 2018 goals is more truck and more equipment. What I can say about that is that we filed an application with DEP to get 5 battery-operated Volkswagen garbage trucks, which is supposed to be free. Jersey City and another municipality also filled the application to receive these free trucks. A more in-depth explanation to be in the booklet that I provide. Basically, we need more manpower. on these streets. You know, we get a lot of complaints, and sometimes the complaints, we handle the complaints as soon as we receive them. But I just want y'all to know that takes us off our regular process of our goals that we have to complete that day. And some stuff be minor. They don't be major or for something for us to stop what we're doing to go do, but we do it to please our residents. And we putting together training, working with our local union. We working with other municipalities that can have our staff get training, even as far as garbage trucks, driving garbage trucks, throwing garbage, street sweeping, recycling, et cetera, et cetera. And we will roll out a plan to do early morning pickups. We go out at 6 o'clock in the morning now, so we'll do a pilot program and start picking up 2, 3 in the morning, especially on bulk day, because everybody dump at the same location, and we get hit sitting there waiting for 2 hours to dump our bulk. And we also work with NDD, and we work with North Housing Authority. We identified 3 locations with North Housing Authority: Bradley Court, Stephen Crane Elderly. What we go do is they pay a vendor to pick they box, where they get a box, what is a dumpster from a vendor. What we're going to do is we're going to work out a program with them. We'll do a pilot to see if we can actually start dumping their bulk. Means that we take their garbage for free. We feel as though that they pay other vendors, they should be paying us too. That's going to come back before we actually do it. That's going to be in our plan too. In the cleanup, we have a couple of things happening in the city of Newark. We always wait till the spring to clean up. We go do a citywide cleanup 4 times this year in each quarter. We also go have a cleanup with the Earth Day. We have the Clean Community Cleanup in October 4th, 2018, and the Earth Day cleanup is actually April 28th, 2018. So that's what I have for garbage. That's just a couple of bullets that I want to speak about. But as I said, it'll be more in depth that y'all read when y'all receive them booklets.
So when are they supposed to be going for this training to be able to learn how to pick up garbage?
We started last Saturday.
And how many people were being trained?
Well, who came last Saturday? About 12 people. 12 people.
12 current employees.
Yes, that's who's going to be getting trained. Our current employees that currently throw garbage now. We're going to have them retrained. We putting brooms and shovels and rakes on the back of each garbage truck. So when they get to a site and they if debris get left, they're able to pick it up and throw it right in the truck. So we just trying to,
So when you said before that the supervisors were the ones driving the trucks, were you referring to garbage or that was the sweepers?
That's the sweepers, not the garbage trucks.
Okay.
The regular CDL drivers drive our refuse trucks.
Okay, so who's being trained and why is there a pilot program going in? Just explain that one more time.
Everybody's being trained. Everybody have to be retrained. They've been conditioned and seasoned to do the same thing every day, and they think sometimes what they do is correct. So we retrain them on a process, even with pre-trips. When they stick a key in the ignition, they got to do a pre-trip of their truck before they take it out. They got to fuel the trucks up before they get back, when they get back to the garage, opposed to filling them up in the morning. So it's little stuff like that we correcting on our end before we actually send the truck out to go start throwing garbage. So everybody.
And just re-explain to me, I'm trying to grasp.
Grasp what?
With the pilot program at the senior building or Kretschmer, you said?
Yes.
So what's currently happening there? They're paying another outside vendor?
Yes, everybody that have buildings in the city of Newark pay outside vendors for some services. And we feel as though that could be brought in house bins that we take their regular garbage for free. So we met with the executive director of Housing Authority, and he identified 3 locations where they actually pay a vendor to take their garbage. We go actually get in the process of seeing how much money they spent as far as the other vendor, how much that we could bring in house, so where the city can make money off dumping their garbage.
So that's with Housing Authority. What about the other tall towers like New Community and
well, we
other places?
We didn't identify them yet. Only thing we did as far as New Community, the buildings on Elizabeth Avenue, Colonnades, we sent out certain trucks to just do those locations so we could actually have a good amount of bulk or garbage and tonnage that we actually do for those people.
I'm saying, are we going to start charging them as well?
That's the ultimate goal, yes, to charge everybody.
But Director, if you said we don't have enough manpower now, then we would have to hire more individuals to pick up more garbage?
Yes, that's part of the plan. If they start paying the city of Newark, then the money that we make off that, we could be hiring laborers and drivers with that money. So it don't actually mess with our budget. We actually try to do a trust account strictly for DPW. So when violations happen or things like we take over a housing authority and they start paying us, the money will come back into a trust account and we be able to use that money for employment.
So how does the night pickup impact what you're saying that you're going to do a pilot program now of picking up the garbage at 2 and 3 in the morning?
Well, it impacts.
It's going to overlap now?
On Julian Street, I went there Wednesday. City of Newark is not the only municipality that dumps there. The whole county dumps there. And that line that them people have to wait to dump the truck is about 2 to 3 hours minimum. So 2 to 3 hours, we have a refuse truck sitting there. It hurts us during the daytime. So by us going to pick some bulk up at night, we already started because the night crew, they go grab bulk. When we know it's a bulk day coming up on Wednesday, the night crew will start grabbing certain areas of the city. So when the day crew come in, it won't be so much on them to do.
Mr. President, could I ask a few questions?
Just a minute. So I'm just trying to get a grasp. We were already doing night pickup. Was that for garbage only, or that was for what?
That was for bulk and boxes. The boxes is the boxes that's at the.
I always thought the night crew that we had added on was for garbage. So that was not garbage.
They do garbage and litter baskets. That was their ultimate goal. But being that we sitting in Elizabeth for 2-3 hours, it's hurting us. So I had them start taking boxes and start doing some routes at night, in the evening.
And so the 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning group is going to be picking up what?
Both. They go pick up bulk and they go pick up regular routes.
So that means now we're doing 24 hours around the clock.
That's our goal, to get to 24 hours.
So are we there?
You're not doing, no. That's the goal is to start picking up 2-3 in the morning. We haven't started. The only thing we implemented was the night staff. When they come in at 3 o'clock, they go, is before they leave the day, is grab some of the boxes that's in our housing complexes and pick up bulk on it, so it won't be so heavy for us on the morning. You understand?
No.
No.
Yeah.
I'll get it. I might get it on the way going home.
Yeah, my questions, Director, deal with enforcing some of the rules that we currently have as it relates to bulk garbage. I know it typically takes the department multiple days because we've limited the number of bulk garbage pickup dates to cover certain zones, and by city ordinance now the number of pieces that a particular property owner can put out is limited. But I'm not sure if that's actually being enforced. And how are we dealing with large apartment buildings? Like I drive down Mount Prospect, 515 Mount Prospect, 555, 402. They literally have stacks of mattresses outside and other material that they probably emptied out, empty apartments and put stuff out on the street. And now it's the city's responsibility to pick up, these pieces of furniture, which I don't think is right or fair for the city. And the second thing I want to mention, now with the popularity of Amazon and other home delivery systems, when we put out cardboard, it's not a few pieces of cardboard anymore. You go by particular homes and they literally have 30 and 40 boxes. And in the past, we used to require property owners to flatten the cardboard boxes, to tie them up, to have them ready for easy pickup in front of the house. And the other day I'm driving down Lake Street trying to get to Bloomfield Avenue, and it's very narrow between 2nd Avenue and Bloomfield. And the truck that was picking up cardboard actually, they had no choice but to stay in traffic for a good 15-20 minutes until they picked up cardboard from one of the apartment buildings there, because there were over 100 boxes that weren't ready for pickup. They weren't flattened, they weren't tied up, they were just put out on the street. So I think we have to do a better job of notifying property owners and tenants of what the rules are so that it could facilitate, the services that you're providing. Because right now it's all over the place. They're just putting out boxes, they're putting out 15, 20, 30 pieces of bulk garbage when they're only supposed to put out a limited number, and that puts more strain on your workers.
They're gonna continue doing that because they want to get the garbage out their house. So, I mean, short of somebody else coming behind and doing code enforcement and citing them with a ticket, they're gonna continue to do that. They've been doing it. They know better than to put out that much garbage at one time.
And maybe through the BA, we can at least send out a mailer or some kind of informational piece educating our homeowners and residents of what the city law requires them to do. Especially now with cardboard. I mean, and Khalif could attest to it. On Tuesdays, at least in my sector, used to be a few pieces of cardboard, and then you had a few houses that didn't even have boxes out. Now everyone has boxes out, and they don't properly flatten and prepare them for easy pickup.
Agreed, and with the transient nature of some of the areas with apartment buildings, we'll need to actually do a more regular mailing, because there are a number of apartment buildings that I passed by today that you can see that most likely several individuals put out garbage separately because they were kind of in separate areas and collected differently. So we need to have a standard message. We'll put something out.
So Khalif, what's the rule with cardboard? They're supposed to flatten and tie up the cardboard.
Flatten and tie it up before.
Nobody does that.
Well, that's part of the recycling piece, Councilman.
I do it.
More importantly, we have to re-educate the community, like us sending out mailers and stuff. So that's part of the recycling. We have a recycling coordinator, and that's what her job will be, is to go into Newark public schools, the hospitals, and even in new community into these buildings and start doing recycling training.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, if you stop picking up in areas where they don't properly put out their bulk, we're going to get the calls, but that's the only way people are going to stop. Because it's unfair to the workers that they're taking 15 minutes in front of a house picking up 100 little boxes when they should be flattened, tied up, and easily discarded. And same thing with bulk. Person moves into a house, they can't put out 100 pieces of furniture that the former property owner left and expect the city to pick it up.
Yes.
So.
But the issue is, how do you enforce that? Because sanitation, when they get there, you can't, unless the city turns around and sends a letter to those tall apartment towers and say to them, we're only going to pick up this certain amount of garbage. And then in the meantime, somebody's putting garbage out, and now you got rodents running around. So what do you do when all that garbage is out there and the rats are running around the doggone garbage?
Well, that's it.
They know better. They just are not going to do it.
We're going to work towards the goal of getting them to do it. Our first piece is education, and then we're going to enforce. We have working with the code enforcement office, and we're going to be hitting the ground running with the enforcement of getting these people fined that's not adhering to our rules.
And I think lack of compliance on the residential, it's just not in the large apartment buildings anymore. It's residential properties. Results in sanitation division taking longer to do pickup. So you have the ability now of having bulk garbage and other garbage out there for multiple days, which does contribute to the rodent problem. So by us being more responsible in making sure that we put out our cardboard properly, that we only put out the limited number of bulk garbage items that we're supposed to, it enables them to run through their zone within the time period that they're supposed to run through their zone, and not have bulk garbage out there for 3 or 4 days, not have a cardboard out there for 2 days, not have other recyclables on Fridays out there as well. So that's where the educational piece, and the city has to put some money behind notifying property owners. We have to do mailers. You have to utilize social media campaigns. The department definitely needs that resource so that we can re-educate our residents and homeowners on what the rules are.
Yes, that's what we are currently in the process of doing. That stuff we know the enforcement is a major key for our daily operation, and it's going to help the city out. You want to move to recycling?
Yeah.
No, you said you're currently doing that. You have the money to already start educating the public about it?
Yes, we have that, yes.
Within the budget?
Yes.
So you got enough money to hire the additional people you're gonna need to do this 24-hour shift now?
The 24-hour shift doesn't need hiring right now. We're gonna move toward that goal, right? We're gonna move toward that goal. That's not nothing that's gonna happen tomorrow. So that's a part of our 2018 goals. We didn't set a date where we go meet that goal, but whatever money we need, I'm quite sure the city have no problem helping us out reaching the goal to get our city clean.
Mr. President? Also, with cardboard, you have liquor stores, you have stores that are supposed to have a private, someone coming and picking. What I'm observing is that with boxes, especially with cardboard, they're coming and dropping them off in different sites. Like the other day, I noticed in the morning on certain sectors that the night before there was just a little bit of boxes that person put out. In the morning, it was just piles from Corona to maybe it could be clubs, from social clubs. It could be different stores, but again, liquor stores, bodegas, and etc. They have a responsibility to have someone pick those boxes up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Those people are supposed to have trade waste permits. We have 2 enforcement officers that's strictly assigned to DPW. So that's what they're in the process. Just two
for the whole city.
No, it's not for the whole city. Just 2 for DPW. Code enforcement have a boatload of people, but we have 2 down there that's seasoned with us that's going through that stuff right now. They actually putting a plan of action in place, so the people in code enforcement can follow that plan of action.
Okay. I mean, some of these businesses, we should have a list of who. Do we have a list of who picks up their boxes, their permits?
I need their trade waste permits. I could get that. That's part of the.
Are they up to date? I mean, because someone may say I got it years ago, but not every year, right?
That happens in Juanita's office.
Right.
I hear you.
I said that happens in special permits office.
Yes.
There's 2 or 3 questions that on 2 or 3 different subjects, and we talked about this in private, the 2 of us. When do you expect to have the problems related to street sweeping over, in terms of covering all the streets? There are some streets where we haven't seen a sweeper in a while.
I was going to recycling. You want to?
I'm moving into street sweeping.
Oh. Well, we actually following routes. So we have detailed routes, turn by turn, with maps. We haven't done it in a long time, right? And I think that we doing an excellent job trying to catch up, getting the dirt up. I think we're doing an excellent job as far as trying to do stuff that was never done. So we gonna get it together. We gonna get it together. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be done tomorrow, but we gonna get it together. We made a lot of progress. Sweeping our street.
One would be a good idea because tomorrow is Easter.
We have a lot more to go.
Director, could you address what's the issue? Is it because the street sweeping hasn't been undertaken in a while, but there seems to be like a trail of dirt in a number of areas, and I'm not sure if that's just the fact that it hasn't been done in a few months, or is it a mechanical issue with these new sweepers? Like, what's the problem?
It's just like when you first get a keyboard in front of you, you never knew how to type before. They gonna get used to do it. They gonna get used to it.
Does it pick up the dirt, the sweep?
Yes, and they supposed to double back around and pick it up. We got a couple of issues that happened yesterday with these sweepers, and we gonna fix our problems. We gonna fix our problems.
Director, I have a couple of issues in that it seems to be no consistency on how the garbage is being picked up. One street is swept, or one street has the garbage picked up, the next street, then we're constantly getting calls. and, you know, it's like, it has a spinning, and, you know, I understand that you need time, but it seems like we should be able to come up with a plan that's more in tune with what we need as far as doing the grids. I don't understand why maybe Sunset is swept, Brookdale is not swept, Aventure may be swept, Lindsley is not swept. And then when you get to the corner, those little retainers, those little grids, they're not cleaning at all. They're filthy. I don't know what street sweeper will go down the street and not clean those grids. You know what I'm talking about?
The catch basin.
Catch basin, they're not cleaning the catch.
Why would they do that though? Why would they can't do that. It's too much garbage in those catch basins. What we have now is we have a crew.
Who's supposed to do it?
We have a crew that's going around actually doing that. I wouldn't rely on the street sweeper to pick no catch basin up. This presentation gonna be about street sweeping, or we go through it.
It has to be coordinated. It has to be coordinated because it sits too long. Once they come through the street, it sits too long in the catch basins.
I beg to differ.
Well, I'm telling you what I see. I go through Oakland Terrace. I get complaints all the time.
When we go through those blocks and we check the GPS, they have been through there. These streets is filthy. Us going through there one time, 2 times ain't gonna clean it. Sometimes we gotta go by there multiple times. That's why I let them sweep at night to grab what they could grab while cars not in the way. Right? Stuff is not gonna get done with the snap of a finger. Because when it was done by other people, it wasn't done with the snap of a finger. It wasn't.
Well, we don't.
We're doing the best that we can.
Listen, I understand that. I understand you knew. I understand that you're implementing plans. But my thing is that
not good enough for you. Not good enough for you.
But
not good enough for you.
This is your director. This is your director. And that's your VA.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously we're willing to work with you. We understand that you need time, but I'm just saying the issues that we have, because we get calls on them every day, and I just hope that you are implementing a plan, that they're not open-ended, and, you know, that these things start happening. Like, they have to come clean the catch basins after the street sweepers, so it has to be some coordination on how we do that. And with these boxes, I think we definitely have to start with the information. We could probably help with that, but the information has to get out. You can't continue to just let people put boxes out in front of their homes, as you stated earlier. There's too many boxes. Everybody orders online now, Macy's, Amazon. And so if we don't do something with that, you'll never be able to catch up if we don't implement programs that force people to tie up their boxes. We'll never catch up. That's a whole new issue that we have that we didn't have. It wasn't as bad last year or the year before. So that's just only going to get worse.
Director, how much money are we saving by bringing this in-house?
We're going to get to the numbers.
Okay.
Well, let me ask a question. Now, if you're talking about putting people on 7 days a week, which you're implying that is happening, okay? Almost 24 hours a day. Right now, what are we saving? What's the overtime? How are we not burning our guys out? Now, I'm gonna send you a video that was sent to me from a Central Ward resident, Miss Singletary, okay? And she showed how the truck went up the street and left more dirt than it was. Now, the damn gone streets could not have been that dirty. It's I don't know if it's the width of the broom, but it left a trail straight up Fairmont Avenue, okay? So Councilman Ramos implied that that's happening in the North Ward. Councilman McCullum said that it's happening in the West Ward. So is it the size of the broom, of the machine? And the next question is, why did I get pictures of sweeping machines that say rental? From the same resident. She took pictures of trucks that out there that look to be wider than what we have purchased with Pennsylvania license plates. So who contracted them? And is that the size of machine we should be using for street sweeping?
You want me to answer? Or you still?
Or you want me to answer?
Oh, I thought you.
Ask a question.
I thought you was gonna keep on going. That's why I didn't say nothing. We actually did the declaration of emergency for street sweepers, and they have rental on there because we got it from a rental place to do a pilot and see if we could do it ourselves, right? So we doing a cost analysis with these sweepers, right? And they have Pennsylvania plates because they was the ones that responded, right? We could have had some with New York plates, right? In fact, New York wanted to give us trucks, but we took who had the best, and we can't measure what we pick up because each item that we pick up in those sweepers get measured differently. So a rock could get measured different from a wet leaf. Those trucks are good, and the minimum they should be able to hold 3 tons in there, right? The tonnage go different. It's going to change. It depends on what we sweeping up. It had Vortex on there because they rental. We couldn't rip nobody else's equipment and change their plates and put our own logo on them. That's the ultimate goal. That's why we have a bid out. We have a bid out for leasing street sweepers to own. So when we get that bid and we get a good number, we get a good vendor, we go put our own stuff on it because after 5 years we'll be able to own it for $1, right? So I wouldn't go spend no money on no decal just for a 90-day period. I let the rental thing stay on the back of the truck. They're not going to be here forever, right? We have plans in place. Now, is my presentation about street sweeping or about everything else? Because we're not going to finish, or we're going to talk about.
Wait a minute. First of all, I'm asking a question that I have a right to ask to a director. Okay, you got a consultant sitting out here that maybe you need to turn to him and ask him some of these questions to answer. Okay, so please, whatever you do, I'm not trying to make this personal. I'm trying to get some answers. Okay, so I'm asking you the question: the size of what we purchase, as opposed to what we're leasing to rent, to sweep, is that the size of the machines that we need to have? Maybe we purchased a machine that was too small in size. That's what I'm asking you.
Director, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't purchase a machine.
We didn't purchase.
We're renting them.
I was going to go on with the
I'm not talking about, didn't we buy 8 sweepers?
No, we didn't.
We're renting them.
We leased them.
All right, so why are they not the same size? Is that the reason why the garbage is being swept different?
No, it's not. Some of them, the hopper's too full, right? The drivers didn't realize that it was too full. There's many different reasons. And I'm not saying that you can't ask me a question. I was going to go through a presentation, and then we was going to deal with the street sweeper last because we know it's going to get lengthy about talking about it. So you can ask me anything, and I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The machines, I can send you the pictures of what Ms. Singletary sent me. You're saying that they're supposed to come back down that street and sweep it again. They obviously did not. And not just in the Central Ward, but in other wards, they obviously did not. So you have this pile of dirt now that's in the middle of the street so that when cars pass on either side, they're pushing the dirt back on the streets. So what's the problem? Is it the size of what we are leasing, those 8 machines that we're leasing? That they're not the same size as the ones we're leasing from Pennsylvania?
It had nothing to do with the machines. It probably was the operator. And those streets that I got the complaints about, or those who didn't go back through, they're going to get reprimanded. But it's nothing to do with the machine.
But you can't keep taking all of this on yourself.
I am going to do it. I'm going to do it. That's my job. I'm going to take it on my shoulders. The streets that was left like that, we're going to do it.
The residents can't wait for it all to get done by you, okay? So you keep saying that we're doing better than what we used to do. Obviously, we're not. So I'm trying to ask you, why are we leasing?
Can I jump in for a second? Madam Councilwoman, I think the initial problem was We were paying outside vendors an exorbitant amount of money, and we got complaints from residents. We got them every day. I got them in the South, that they weren't picking up, that the machines were breaking down. So the city administration said, let's do a pilot program. Let's lease our own, see if we can do it in-house for 90 days, and they've never done that before. But they're trying to save the taxpayer money, because that's what it comes down to. We had complaints with the vendor. At the same time, a bid is out. A bid is out. So they're not just doing one thing at one time, we're doing multiple things to try and provide a better quality service and save the taxpayer money. Are there hiccups? Are there hang-ups? Is this as bad as the health fiasco, which I asked for a vote of no confidence? No. But this is a time where we're trying something to save the voters' money, and that's the bottom line.
Wait a minute.
Is it going to be perfect? No.
Wait, Councilman. See, this is one thing you all not gonna do. All right? Don't deflect what the issue is, okay? This ain't got nothing to do with a vendor, okay? This ain't got nothing to do with me trying to save a vendor and the fact
No,
that...
I didn't say that. No, I said taxpayer dollars. I said the problem was, no, I'm not saying that.
I'm trying to find out.
Yes.
The biggest issue is the complaint about the doggone streets being dirty. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying about the residents.
The initial started with taxpayer dollars.
Pilot program is now expanded because we don't have street sweepers in every ward now. You cut off the contract for one, so now we brought it all in-house. So that ain't no damn pilot. That is an action, okay? A complete citywide action. That was not what was explained to us in the beginning. It was going to be a pilot to see how we can do it. So I'm saying in the central ward, when I get people who turn around and send me videos or call me up and say, the street sweeper came down, but they're leaving more dirt, I'm trying to get an answer to a question. Is it because of the size of the machines, or is it not? Because people want to know. They're saying, well, the streets are still dirty because you all took it over and it's still dirty. So I'm saying, what is leaving that pile of dirt in the middle? Is the broom not too wide enough, or not? I mean, and then we turn around and I get complaints and say, well, there's people from Pennsylvania. Okay, so I'm just trying to get clarity for the residents. Okay.
Councilwoman, what John explained, I explained 3 times in each council meeting except for today.
Can we get it back?
This about street sweeper, I'm gonna let the consultant step up.
Director, can we get back on track and go back to the presentation you were attempting to do? In terms of street sweeping, the stump removal, and the tree removal? You have any news for us? Are we going to begin the
stump removal, tree pruning, and tree removal bid will be out in March. We finalize the specs. We go issue it to purchasing. We get the certification of funds, and we go issue that bid out.
So the bids for the stump removal will go out in March. What about
that's going to be a set aside for small minorities. We have a total of 1,400 stumps that's in the city.
Okay. Tree removal.
Tree removals will be in the same bid process and pruning.
Okay. The going back a little bit to the street sweeping, are you going to give us a guarantee that some of the problems that we were talking about up here are going to be over soon?
If I got to get out there and do it myself, it's going to get done.
Yeah, let's hear from the consultant.
Hey, colleague, real quick, is there any issues dealing with, is it due to lack of resources or manpower?
No, sir.
How many laborers do they got with them out when they go out?
With who? With the street sweepers?
Yes.
This is just the driver. I got laborers doing the catch basin. So if and this we only been doing it for a month.
Right.
1 month. How many streets that left a trail in a month? 1 day. Show me a video from last month. You can't. It's 1 day. Yesterday. 1 day. Show me a video from last month that those street sweepers went out and do it. In fact, if you think they're not adequate, they're not big enough, just call me and I have a street sweeper meet you on any block and they will do that block right there in front of you. That's what's gonna happen, because it's nothing wrong with the equipment. And if they came from Missouri, if we purchased something from another area, I don't see no problem with it. Y'all making this an issue. Not about no street sweeper.
No, wait a minute, Director. Y'all who? When you say y'all mean everybody. Okay, so
Council, the council.
well, we're supposed to make it an issue if people are calling us, Director.
We are y'all do not get as many phone calls I get. We are working. We made a lot of progress. Right? A lot of progress. Y'all have to let us go. We can't clean it. We deal with complaints. We're gonna get to it. Anything not done. That's why we got the people. I got 2 people sweeping at night. So if it's a complaint was done during the day, if we couldn't take care of it and we was notified about it, the night sweeper gonna go. Regardless of any cars in the way or anything, we still gonna go and put a broom on that block. Like, I can't even hear y'all because these people is like, come on, man.
Director, prior to you getting the street sweepers, the 8 that you put out there was a lapse in cleaning. All right? So those people who are frustrated that for a whole month and a half that they didn't get their streets clean are still frustrated. Okay? So that's why they're calling. And you're saying that you'll go out on any block? I didn't get videos. When people were calling me before about the streets being dirty, whether there was, all along, I've always said we've had issues with all street sweeping, okay? So at the end of the day, I don't understand why you're being, well, maybe I'm perceiving you as being extremely defensive, that this is not an issue about getting phone calls. But I know people are telling me, and they're calling me, and telling me about the streets having not been swept and cleaned for all that time, because they're also complaining about the fact that they got parking tickets during that time. Okay? So I could show you the photos of the parking tickets because there was no coordination between the police department and the parking authority to say no issuance of tickets. Okay?
Those tickets will get dismissed. And to another point, we have every ward covered by street sweepers. Some wards that got a broom in it, that's not true. That's the purpose of y'all having a GPS in your hands. Everything that we say is not being done, it is being done. 3 in the West Ward, 3 in the South, 3 in the Central, 3 in the North, 3 in the East. All of them get swept every day at the same time. We using more equipment than the vendor had. So how we don't have, we got 12 pieces of equipment. 8 we ran, the rest of them in the house, 11. So how we gonna have street sweepers in those wards? I do not understand this. Not understand.
You have a total of 11?
Yes, 3 of them city.
And Director, this is
8 of them.
this is street by street, turn by turn.
Turn by turn, and got the mileage on there, how fast they driving. It got each street logo labeled on the left side of that document. Every ward have a turn by turn. We don't even have routes. We had nothing.
Well, that was the fault of your predecessors.
No, it wasn't. I don't agree with that.
Well,
not the one I replaced and not the one that replaced him is not the fault. The crazy thing is that this is the only place that a vendor come here and reinvent the way we operate. That's the damn problem.
No, the damn.
Now that we put our foot down, and I'm supposed to get offended.
No.
Yes, they're my guys you talking about.
Wait a minute.
We talk about sanitation, you talk about me.
Well, wait a minute.
They're my guys.
For you to say that my questions are based on a vendor, I ain't have $30,000 in my damn office, okay? So don't even.
And me neither. And me neither.
So me.
And me neither.
Do not imply that I'm fighting for some vendors.
Director Colin Thomas did not have $30,000 in his office neither.
I ain't say it was in your office.
You can't argue.
I ain't say.
Come on.
I did not say it was in his office.
Come on.
I did not say it was in his office. What I said is it was in sanitation, okay?
You didn't say sanitation.
I said it was not in my office. The issue is I'm not going to have what I'm saying about the fact that I'm talking about a damn vendor group. It doesn't make a difference about the vendor. What I'm saying is what people are sending me.
Good morning. The mic is it off?
Test it.
Okay.
Good morning, my name is Phil Levecki. I'm a Senior Vice President with Mott McDonald. I'm a consultant. I'm presently the project manager on the optimization study being performed at the Department of Public Works. If I could, I'd just like to give a very brief synopsis of how we got here, which would answer a number of the council members' questions. I believe Councilman McCallum had an issue with respect to the coordination between the sweeping and garbage pickup on streets.
We can't hear it. Hold on.
No?
Everybody.
Please, the gentleman is talking.
Is that better?
Yes.
Forgive me. If I could, I would just briefly like to give a short synopsis of how we got here with respect to the street sweeping contract, which would answer a number of the council members' questions. First and foremost, you asked about the equipment. Are the sweepers that we're currently using optimal for this environment with leaves still on the ground from last fall and wet? No. But I'll explain how we got here and how we're using this particular piece of equipment. The equipment that we're using going forward is regenerative air, which is more appropriate for this environment. So what you were seeing was not the sweeper's deficiency as much as it was the operator failing to stop to unload, and we're operating beyond the limit of the container. So it was filling. If I could, back in October, I was asked to take a look at a number of contracts that the city had put out or were preparing to advertise for trees, for street sweeping and others. They had been operating under emergency contracts for a protracted period. While looking at the contract, there were two directives given to us by the administration. One, for street sweeping, we'd like to establish a set-aside, which we did. The other was to look at the contract for its performance metrics. Make sure that you optimize and get the most out of these contracts, the best performance for our dollar, which we tried to do. The seminal change in the contract was going from what was a daily rate to what we prescribed as a curb or lane mile rate. Curb mile is a generic term used by sweepers all across the country. The number of miles of your streets don't change, your city doesn't grow, so using that as a baseline, you can compare apples to apples and bidders, how much you want to charge to sweep a mile as opposed to someone else. So, forgive me, the contract was put out to bid. We received bids at the end of December, and our intent was to award the contract to continue the services that were previously performed by a vendor. Right now, as you know, the north, the central, the east, and the south were swept by a contractor. The west, which we won't discuss at this moment, was always swept by city forces and remains that way. The north, central, south, and east were bid. We received two bidders, and both bidders were non-responsive to two critical elements in the bid. We obviously couldn't award, and we had to determine whether we were going to recommend an additional extension for emergency, or were we going to look to do this ourselves. So, since we were pressed for time, we contacted numerous vendors to rent equipment, and very few were able to provide us with regenerative air equipment in the number of pieces we needed for the time we needed, which was at least 90 days, while we rebid and estimated our resources to determine if we're doing this properly, if we can do it, which we assume we could. So that's why we were with boom sweepers and not the equipment that we would like, but it is functional. The volume of them for storage is smaller. They're about 4.5 cubic yards as opposed to 6, so they don't go as far between offloading. That's something that the operator should be able to clearly see and stop and resume their route. So it's an operator failure you're seeing. It's not equipment generally. All right, as far as the contract, very briefly. The contract that you had in place for some time charged you $1,122 per day for a driver, for the equipment, and for all costs. That's disposal, fuel, everything. For the east and south wards, and $1,055 per day for the central and north. And then the same $1,122 per day for the overnight sweeping. Generally, you sweep between 15 and 19 times a month, depending on the size of the month, if it's a 5-week month or not. So for purposes of today, let's just say 19 sweepings a month is the most you can do. So we'll use that as a basis for cost comparison. On a 19 event month, and let's say August of 17 is the numbers we used, we were paid for 4 units to sweep the north and the east, north and central, 4 for the east and the south, and 1 overnight, for a total of 9 per day. that costs you $186,770 for the month of August. For an annual cost, if you project that out to $2.2 million. Presently, we're renting 8 pieces of equipment. I stipulate, not the ones we want, but what we could get for 90 days. And at that, we were renting them at $11,500 per month, using our equipment, our drivers, our fuel, and our disposal. With our daily labor rate, it costs us $850 per day, so on its face, we're 25% cheaper than the vendor, right from the front. That's if we do nothing differently. However, at 9 vehicles per day, we were noticing through our observation, as we're doing this, we don't require 9 vehicles. Clearly, the same sweeper that works from 8 to 12 can work from 12 to 4, can work at night and overnights where possible. So you don't need 9 vehicles we're seeing. Sweepers sweep properly between 3 and 5 miles an hour, which means you shouldn't give them routes of more than 20 miles. So if you have a ward with 80 lane miles, you can do the math. You need approximately 4 to do the ward. In this particular case, we found that we're using 4 brooms to sweep the east and the south, and we're using 5 brooms to sweep other wards. So for conservative purposes, we're going to say we're using 5 a day. At using 5 a day at the rental price, which is higher than purchasing, our annual savings is $1.2 million, roughly $100,000 per month. Now, if we lease to own, which is what we've advertised, there is a bid out today, or actually since last Tuesday, to purchase lease to own 8 regenerative air sweepers, Timco 600s or equal, which is the equipment that's been used for many years here, so the city's familiar with it. That equipment, through financing, will result in a total daily cost of $482 per day. That drops our cost significantly further, bringing us down to a savings of $140,000 per month, or $1.6 million per year. So that's where we stand today. The issue with routes, we were not operating in those 4 wards for many years. There are very few people here that ever worked on the program when we did sweep those routes, so there's no historic information to fall back on, so we had to recreate routes for the remaining 4 wards, which we did. And those routes are able to cover the entire city with 5 pieces of equipment pretty conservatively. So we have 1 month under our belt. We have a bid out on the street to buy new equipment of our own, and we're going to continue doing this for the next 60 days, and ultimately the administration will make the decision that they feel is best, whether that is to continue on and exact the benefit of savings, or take our bid, which we've recreated for rebid, and put it back out. They may choose to do both, but our job is to give the city options to do what's best in their best interest. At the moment, the drivers are still running the equipment, and they're still running the routes. As you can imagine, we give them to them turn by turn, and they're turning roughly every 400 feet. So it's not something that you can memorize or do intuitively. So we're working on a mechanical device to prescribe these routes to them like GPS in your car, which would make it much simpler for them. And most importantly, these vehicles and anyone we contract with or purchase will have GPS tracking equipment on it so that your residents can look at it remotely and know when their sweeper's coming. I'm sure that they would be interested in that. That's basically the presentation. It's not an exact science, but I can provide a business plan which gives you these dollar for dollar if you wish.
Councilman McCollum?
Can you tell me who's training the drivers?
The vendor, forgive me, the vendor came out to train the drivers, actually trained 15 drivers, using only 8, so we have more reserve than we needed to operate the equipment themselves. Many of these drivers sweep through the city today in the West Ward, so they're familiar. So the overflow drivers from the West are working in this group, and CDL drivers who are looking for a leg up and a way to promote away from the back of the garbage truck have a sustainable opportunity with the department.
Okay, so the West had 4 vehicles. 2 were city side. I think 2 were from the other company. So those 2 drivers have experience, the ones that were driving the 2 vehicles. So all of the other drivers have to be trained?
Not all of the others, just the additionals that had Class B CDLs that were willing to participate in the program. Many volunteered to be trained that have not yet driven.
And what's the ideal time frame for someone to be trained?
There's not a hard science. People learn things at a different rate. It's a very simple machine. It's knowing the limits of the equipment, knowing when to stop when you see your vehicle spilling debris, simple things like that, and to drive safely and stay within the range of 3 to 5 miles an hour when you're sweeping.
And are the grids still being determined?
We have 30,
The routes?
sorry, we have 38 routes we've identified in 4 wards. 32 of them are complete. We're still working on the remaining 6. So to answer your question, no, we are not 100% operational. We're in the 90s percentile.
Okay, so once you get up to speed on the routes, everything should go smoothly as far as the streets being swept and not one street swept here, the next street not swept. That should be taken care of.
By this Thursday afternoon, the PM routes, we will have covered all of the 4 wards that were formerly done by a contractor in that manner, yes. The West Ward is a separate animal, and we're going to attack that when this is over.
Yeah, I know it's a separate animal. That's the issue.
Well, I can explain. I apologize. It's not that they're different. They have routes that they've been working on for years with their own equipment, so it's not new to them. But we're going to try to optimize that effort to get it done a little bit more effectively, preferably with less equipment and faster.
Madam, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Cheneyfield.
Mr. Levesque, what I'm trying to get to is something that you covered. The issue is the size of the equipment or the capacity of the equipment, okay, that we're leasing. So you're saying, and when I referenced Mr. Thomas's predecessors, what you explained is the fact that there were never any routes that were done because those other 4 wards were always done by a private company. So now you've developed a route for these groups, for these wards. Is that correct?
Yes, 32 of the 38.
Okay, now, is there anything that prevents any machine from going over the grading, which it used to do,
No,
to catch the catch basin?
it's perfectly acceptable.
Okay. So why are we not doing that with the catch basins now with the equipment we have? Is it because of the size of the equipment?
We happen to have individuals that go out and do this manually, so it's not required that the sweeper do it. But in other towns I work with, governments, it's done as by the sweeper. It's covered by the sweeper.
And it's been done here in Newark. I'm asking the question for a reason. Is there any reason why? Because I get complaints about the catch basins as well. Okay? So is there any reason why the machine that we're going to lease will not cover the catch basins as well?
There's not a mechanical reason using a regenerative air sweeper, specifically because it will displace any debris. If you think about it, it's any solid or wrapper or leaves that are compacted may make their way down to the inlet, and then they become a dam over the inlet. When they're saturated, the boom sweeper is not as effective in removing that. Whereas a regenerative air sweeper will blast air, displace it, and vacuum it up. So using the present equipment, I agree with the director's decision to use manual labor in those areas because it's more effective and it will less impact the broom sweeper in its function.
Okay, so the size of the ones that we're leasing now, some of them, the ones that had the Pennsylvania license plates, when they went down the street, it got everything. The other machine didn't. So is it the size of the broom?
The broom width, in that particular case, the larger sweeper has the same broom width, it just has a larger capacity. It's a 6-yard storage capacity, whereas some of the brooms we're renting are 4.5 yard. So if a driver fails to notice that their container is full and it's now unable to collect debris, it will continue to spill it, and that's what you're seeing in your video. It's happened. That's largely operator inexperience.
Okay. Last question. Because we are now doing this in-house, okay, the routes that we are going to be taking, the sanitation workers are going to be taking, the street sweepers are going to be taking, is there now going to be a coordination between the Department of Traffic and Signals to change some of the signage? Because that's been one of my biggest complaints on the coordination. Because on Court Street in the Central Ward, if you start at the top, you go down and it says street sweeping all on Monday, okay? Wednesday. Then you turn around on the opposite side, when you get down to Washington and Court, it changes to Thursday. My thing was, why wouldn't the truck that started at the top of the hill go all the way down to Broad Street on that one side of the street on that Monday? Why would they circle back around another day?
If I could, that's a very good question, and it's something that we encountered while creating the routes. What happened is these routes were established many, many years ago. The city's changed dramatically. I can give you an example. There will be roads that are swept east side on one day of the week and west the other. And when D&J was built in the center of these routes, streets were now segmented. So streets are east, a dead end, several blocks back to east. It's not as uniform as it was when it was conceived. So to your point, there's a lot of confusing routes, and it's difficult for the drivers, which is why we need to give them turn by turn. It's not as intuitive as you would like. But that would require ordinance change, it would require government body approval, but it would also require notifying the residents who for years knew I can't park across the street on Tuesday, and all of a sudden if you change those signs, you're going to find some very upset residents. So we have to do it in a very forward-looking way, and that'll be done at the completion of the routes where we have a list of exceptions that we're going to bring to the city to determine how they want to resolve them, by ordinance change or by route change.
And so the previous company never provided a route?
Not to my knowledge, but I've only been with the city since the beginning of the study. I know it was required in the bid specification.
That's what I'm trying to get
and they didn't provide it.
I'm trying to get to. If it was in the bid specification all of these years, why wasn't that route implemented by the sanitation department immediately when
Respectfully, I apologize for cutting off. It wasn't in the bid spec previously. It was in the specification that we created this time because we were asking for a lane mileage calculation, and we wanted to be sure that if contractor A felt the North Road was 42 lane miles and we thought it was 32, that we come to an understanding of that before we start to build a contract, because we're only going to be bidding a rate. And clearly, if they sweep 20% more streets according to their routes, that would be unfair to the city. So in order to come to a common understanding of the length of each route, we asked for the routes to be provided.
But I'm saying, I'm not disputing your formula change. What I'm asking is, in any bid that you send out for the city, at some point in time, if they're going to be doing asphalt laying or if they're going to be doing street sweeping, there had to be a route that had to be presented to the city to say, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to clean it, okay? They do it with snow removal.
To my knowledge,
over the years, they never submitted anything?
To my knowledge, nothing with respect to street sweeping. I don't know what the history was on snow removal. I used to be an employee here, but that was not what I did at the time.
You were doing what? I was here when you were here, so I know you. But I know you did it at the county, so I'm just saying, that's a deficiency. That was never asked of the vendor.
I don't believe it was.
Yeah, Mr. President, could I?
Thank you. Councilman Ramos?
Phil, I first of all want to thank you for giving us, the overview of why we are where we are today. And the fact is that based on what you stated, that there was an attempt to do a competitive contract to solicit, company or companies to come in and provide this service. There were some issues, fatal flaws in the responses that came back, which then forced the department to consider some interim measures on how to best deliver this service. And my question is the optimal equipment that you mentioned that the city would want to have to continue to pilot delivering this service in-house. When do you anticipate those sweepers being available to the Department of Public Works?
The bid was advertised last Tuesday. The return date is March 8th. Barring any deficiencies in the bids or lack of responsiveness to them, we hope to have them on the next council agenda and available for delivery in the month of April. Our rental contract runs through April 22nd, so as a belt and suspenders approach, we will probably come to you and ask for an extension of that emergency commensurate with the delivery of the equipment. Hopefully it won't be necessary.
And you mentioned the whole issue of us having to, and I agree wholeheartedly. I actually met up with one of the drivers and new sweepers last week on Thursday, and concern that was raised was the fact that on that particular street, the parking restrictions related to street sweeping really didn't make sense and made it very difficult for the city to provide that service. So we need to, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, and the councilwoman did as well, doing a whole assessment on parking restrictions connected to street sweeping. My question to you is, who do you feel within the city should be responsible? Is that a study that should be done by the Department of Engineering? Do we need to, as a council, work with the administration to make sure that we have a professional on board that can help us get there? You know, because one of my questions historically, especially in our business districts, is that parking restrictions connected to street sweeping really takes valuable customer parking offline. And what other municipalities have done, especially in business districts, and I speak selfishly about Bloomfield Avenue, Mount Prospect, Roseville, in the North Ward, is to figure out a way to enable those businesses not to have customer parking offline during prime business hours. Lower Broadway as another example, which I share with the Central Ward. So do you feel that the Department of Engineering is best positioned to do that kind of assessment and offer us recommendations? Have you worked on something similar in another municipality that you could speak of related to restrictions for street sweeping parking?
If I could, the city looks kind of unique in that the engineering department has a very specific role here, where with some other communities we work, it's more encompassing, where Public Works would be a part of engineering. So they'd be the same staff. While I believe that the staff in engineering who I work with could clearly do it technically, they wouldn't have the proximity to the sweeping responsibilities and the garbage collecting responsibilities.
I'm not talking about the sweeping function itself. I'm talking about giving us recommendations on how we can rework the signage, the actual restriction of time, and enabling us to give our business corridors a better restriction that's more conducive for them to attract more customers. If you take parking offline on Mount Prospect, which we do now for an entire afternoon during the week, you know, that's prime business hours for those small businesses. So I'm looking for recommendations on signage and restrictions. The operation of the street sweeping itself, I'm not saying should go to engineering. I'm talking about who's going to give us a plan on how to rework the signage.
I follow you. And what we've done in other jurisdictions is narrow the window in commercial corridors from a 4-hour window to 2-hour window. Just a little bit more conducive to having residents come and park. We also don't want to shift the commercial corridors to overnight, which would be beneficial to them and take parking away for residents, since they're one and the same. If I could, I'd like to end with a response to Councilman McCallum's request before. You said, should it be better coordinated, which I guess speaks to your theory as well. In other towns, street sweeping is coordinated with garbage pickup. But in Newark, you're picking up garbage twice a week and sweeping one side of the street once a week, so it's not as neat. Ideally, you would love to have street sweeping done on a day that you have garbage pickup and have no vehicles and make the collection of waste more efficient. So that's something that we would like to work together to develop a plan for, where we can optimize those days.
And one more thing, Council President. Yeah, with the coordination, never mind.
One more question, and that probably goes to the BA. Where does the funding for these 8 machines come from?
Councilman, you can see that the cost savings would, we plan on leasing them, so the cost would not be all upfront. It'd be spread over a 5-year period. It would be a lease to purchase, and it appears that the savings that the city will realize will pay for the leasing of the machines.
Where does the money come from now?
Currently, sorry. Yeah, they're currently being paid out of the Public Works budget.
Okay.
And Mr. BA, for the record, did the council ever vote on that contract for the leasing?
It was an emergency contract for a 3-month period, which is not required to be presented to city council. So no, city council did not vote on it.
But any extension of that emergency would have to come to this body.
That's correct.
The next time,
That's correct.
So you're saying that with city emergency contracts, the city council is not supposed, they don't have the right to?
The city is not required to bring that first emergency of 3 months to city council.
And Mr. President.
But any extension thereof.
And Councilwoman, let me just mention that, because I actually authored the change to that, because when I first got here, we found that the city had been issuing and authorizing emergency contracts for years, and this body never had the opportunity to consider a vote on them. So our change in the law actually only authorizes them to declare an emergency up to 90 days, and after that, they have to come to the council for authorization. But prior to that, you had towing, various contracts that were under emergency status for years.
Oh, yeah, towing was
Yes.
at least 6 years.
thank you. Public speaking?
We are now in the public speaking portion of this meeting. This is a 30-minute period in which speakers will be given 30 minutes to speak. When you step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You will see a small timing device on the podium in front of you, which will begin counting down your time when you begin speaking. When you reach the 2-minute mark, the yellow light will illuminate, and when you reach your 3rd minute, the red light will illuminate, and there will be an audible sound. Please look forward, speak into the microphone. We are recording these proceedings, and if you turn away, we may miss part of your statement. Please address all questions to the chair and not to individual council members. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this time?
I am present and I wish to speak. Good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon.
Essie Walker, 75 Vassar Avenue. Khalif, I commend you, my brother. I'm going to say to the city council once again, you need to fire this BA. Because it's talking about being proactive in bringing contracts. You pre-plan, you schedule ahead. You know when contracts are ending. You go at least 6 months prior to that. You know that. And Igor, I used to move contracts way ahead of time to have my stuff online to feed those agencies in the county. Hello. Poor administration, debacle after debacle after debacle. Thank you for trying to clean it up, my young brother. But again, this council, your silence is a betrayal to the residents of the city of Newark. You should take that pen to that budget and cross them out. I came today not to talk on that, but to talk about the seriousness of the Amazon proposal. I'm going to ask some questions because I read it in the newspaper. Have any member of this council seen the Amazon proposal? And how do you know how it will impact on the residents of the city of Newark? Can you all even share any particulars about the Amazon proposal? I understand there were 2 meetings that were held that were not wasn't advertised very well. But what was the discussion? What came out of that? Did the citizens really find out all the particulars? One of my questions again is, if Amazon is coming and we're considered, is it going to be the corporate headquarters or is it going to be the warehouse that's coming in the city of Newark? Because it poses 2 questions. Corporate means that they're going to bring people with them. And if we say we're giving 51% of the jobs to go to Newarkers, if they bring folks with them, they now live in the city of Newark, that cuts the 51% down. I want you to think about that. Where is Newark going to get the $2 billion that's going to be invested if we get this particular proposal? In that proposal, I'd like somebody to tell me the holiday, tax freeze, payroll. Does that mean that Amazon is not going to pay payroll taxes? And if they're not going to pay payroll taxes, how long will this be in effect, and what will be the impact on the resident? Because that's revenue coming in, into our city. Or not, that's exactly right. How is the mayor preparing the residents of the city of Newark to either work in corporate America because their management jobs, their tech jobs, and all the BAs and the masters and all the degrees we have in the city of Newark are going to be pushed out, and how are they going to advertise to tell folks that these positions are available? I'm going to stay within my time. Who paid for the initial cost to put this proposal together? Folks, you all sitting up here, you work for the residents of the city of Newark. There is no transparency in this proposal. Other cities are sharing what they have asked from Amazon. Why hasn't Newark shared its proposal with the residents of the city? What's the secrecy? There is no transparency.
Time is up.
Well, I'm gonna respect that.
Time is up.
But I'm coming back to beat you all up because I want to hear some answers, because your betrayal up here being silent and not holding that administration accountable for $2 billion of taxpayer money when you can't even pay
Next speaker, please.
per diem workers. Oh, how horrible.
Next speaker, please.
I'll be back.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Che Coulter. I'm a district leader in Newark South Ward. My address is 11th Street, Newark, New Jersey. I just wanted to say, as a resident of South Ward, a parent, a lot of parents share information, and one of the things we talk about is the effectiveness of the city being cleaned. Mr. Khalif came and spoke before, and he tried to speak on his leadership personally. But I'm not confident, or I'm a bit skeptical that we're giving him the financial resources to operate a first-class department. So for the business administrator to get up here and speak vaguely, I think it's a disrespect to not only me as a parent, but to you as elected officials. And I would encourage you, Mr. Chairman, to at some point have a dialogue with the Affirmative Action Department to ensure that that set-aside is as fruitful and it's being wholesomely operated in an effective manner, so that we get local economic participation with the set-aside. Even if it's on an emergency basis, there's still legal work and other professional services that they undergo with respect to architecture, this planning, and the all of the other legal things. But I wanted to tell this body that in the South Ward we have a biohazard. It's called Woodlawn Cemetery. We've done an extensive investigation. They have a landscape fund of about $1.2 million. It was about 5 years ago. Now it's down to $800,000. And the group of people that are mismanaging that site, and it's in direct code enforcement violation. I've had dialogues with some enforcement officers, but we're hesitant to enforce action at Woodlawn Cemetery. They probably owe us at least $50,000 in fines. All right. Now, a gentleman from my neighborhood, right in the 10th Street corridor, is wondering what kind of leadership posture the city will take, either by this council to, I looked to see if my councilman was there, and we can all make record of that on the record, let the record reflect that, because Woodlawn Cemetery and the seniors that have their loved ones there, it's direct disrespect to not only our veterans, and we're already in the business of disrespecting our veterans. I won't get on that now. But Woodlawn Cemetery has veterans in it, the remains of veterans that go back to World War I and potentially before that, Mr. Joe. And I'm in dialogue with the National Archives on exactly which regiments of veterans have their remains there. But there are Newark riot survivors whose families there. There are Newarkers of all backgrounds there. And we want that cemetery to be maintained in a first-class fashion the way that Fairmont Cemetery is, over on Central Avenue. You drive past Fairmont Avenue, past Central Avenue, going up, and you see a nice cemetery. As well as on the other side behind the airport, you see a nice, dignified cemetery. So I'm willing to take leadership, or we're gonna find a leader in the South Ward to fill that seat, to have Woodlawn Cemetery no longer be neglected in this biohazardous way. And they're trying to, Mr. Chairman, sell plots on top of existing plots, which, as the co-chair of the Essex County Young Republicans, we're gonna hold that organization accountable, and I'll get the record to him very transparently.
Thank you, sir.
Part of that property is located in the Central Ward.
And I'm a moderate Republican, I meant to say. I work with Democrats every day.
Part of that property is in the Central Ward. The committee that you're talking about is the Woodland Cemetery Commission. The monies that they have in reserve was put in reserves by way of a state assembly joint Senate resolution. So they can't draw down on that money the way that they should. There's a young lady, Karima Jackson, council.
Yes, she did a lot of work, and I refuse to leave her by herself on this.
Councilman James has organized cleanups over there. I have organized cleanups over there to assist Karima and the other family members. We had a meeting over there.
We thank you for that.
School, where people literally said that, there was a young lady who used to live in Hayes Homes. Her mother's buried there, and she can't even get to the tombstone. We tried to figure out. Carol Wiggins put me in touch with the guy that does tombstones down on Freelandheisen Avenue or Sherman Avenue. I can't remember, Baltimore or something. In order to try to get the tombstones turned upright. In order to go in there to mow the lawns and stuff like that, because there's a lot of disrepair, and it's painful. We even went down to the state board of commissions about this particular group. They will not allow Karima or any community person to come on that group. They keep it closed, and it's unfortunate because I even talked with Tom Banker, his family, his father used to be on that committee for 25 years. It's a shame and a disgrace the way it's being kept, but those from the community who did try, and in his absence, I will defend the fact that Councilman James was able to get some lawnmowers in on his side. The Central Ward side is a lot more difficult because of the tombstones that are overturned.
Clear. Thank you for your dedication to it.
Thank you.
We had to go all the way down to Perth Amboy to find their meeting, Mr. Chairman, at a yacht club. They only let Karima in the room, but me and the rest of the other brothers, we stood outside because we want to know what's going on their record.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning to the council. My name is Omar Abdul Kareem Shabazz. I live in the West Ward, 16 Western Avenue. I worked for Desjardins for 8 years. Some of the things I've heard from the director and from the city about, some of them are outright lies about the capacity of the machines. I spoke previously to city council about Newark having the opportunity to hire Newarkers in Newark and having the ability. The streets are deplorable. The street sweepers that they have, and my job is at stake, but I don't think my job is as important as representing the residents of the city of Newark and having adequate street sweeping. The sweepers that they have does not have the capacity. The director said last meeting, the city council meeting, they have a 6-ton capacity. That is not correct. These machines are so small, and they're talking about downsizing to 2 times or 2 hours. It's impossible to sweep some of these wards for 2 hours. It's virtually impossible. The machines they have do not have the capacity. If you follow the machines down the street, we use a broom that sweeps the edges of the curb to the vacuum system. When they talk about degenerative air, they have a roll in the back of the machine that just twists this stuff in the streets, and the brooms, if you look at them, and I challenge the director, and I challenge the street sweepers now, that he said that he'll take a street, you go down Seymour Avenue and Chadwick Avenue with one of them brooms, and when we put the contract on the line and see, could that machine sweep up that debris? With the stuff that they leave, that even food particles, it already was a rat infestation in Newark. Now it's more rats because they got more food to eat because the street sweepers are not sweeping them up. And when they said they're going to have a personal team for the catch basins, which are sewer holes, that is almost impossible to have a team to go out and get every sewer hole. The brother asked me, what is a catch basin? That's a sewer hole. It's almost impossible to send a team of men out to sweep catch basins, sewer holes in the city of Newark. There's 5 sewer holes almost on every block. How you going to get somebody out to do that? When we go out with the brooms that we have, we sweep it, we tip it, day by day, and we enter into the room because we have a vacuum system that sucks up the debris. So we really need to do some investigation on this street sweeping business. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Manera El Bumani, citizen of Newark. In regards to the municipal service, as I keep saying, horrible. The homeowners, the businesses, and the residents in this city should be outraged. These council meetings from here moving forward until somebody put a plan in real time in action should be in these seats and being outraged. My question is, what's happening with the funding? Where's the money going? And we need to have to call on the DCA and whoever providing the funding for municipal services. We need to get them to come in here and do an independent audit and make some recommendations as to what's happening. The tax abatement. I want to ask a question in regards, because I've always been addressing tax abatement and we still haven't gotten the tax abatement situation in check. But I want to know, do the city have the right to exchange tax abatement into a percentage of ownership on these developments that's taking place? Because I think the city should move towards whatever percentage of tax abatements that they give to developers or corporations, that they get a percentage of ownership within that development. Is that possible? If not, we need to look into it. With the HUD budget crack cuts looming, I want to know, do the city have a short-term and long-term plan to address 224 Sussex, which as of March 31st, those people will probably have to be exited out of that shelter based on the agreement that was in place. And also a homeless prevention and housing stock plan moving forward as to the development of housing for homeless with all the millions in homeless dollars, and also affordable housing stock. We need to know what you're doing in terms of the affordable housing stock for the needs of the residents. Now, transparency we see is non-existent in terms of having community engagement. So I came before you several times to, number one, there's an ordinance on the books that called for an Office of Ombudsman. And I don't know if we can put that ordinance in enforcement and enforce that ordinance, because the residents need public advocacy in the city. And I called on either that to be implemented and enforced, or either call on someone to put in place a public advocate and also a citizen advisory board that is in representation of the council. So we need a citizen advisory board, we need a public advocate, and we need the Office of Ombudsman. Either one of those three, we need those in place, because we need to be at the table.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Thank you.
What can happen?
Next speaker.
Good afternoon. Roy Arena, Dejanet Industries. I heard a lot of inaccuracies being spoken here today. First and foremost, it was stated that the bids that were received for street sweeping were non-responsive. One of those bids was Dejanet's, and I can assure you that we submitted routes with our bid, which is the reason why the consultant stated the bid was non-responsive. Additionally, there was some talk about the mechanical brooms, the fact that they know that they are the wrong machine and there'll be regenerative air machines coming in the future. Well, if they're the wrong machines, they shouldn't have been put in the last bid specification that I believe was prepared a few months ago, that was advertised, which did have mechanical brooms listed in it. It wasn't until we objected to that and made the request for regenerative air machines because we know that that's the proper machine for the job here in the city, be included in that bid, that they contemplated the change. Additionally, the costs that were quoted here today are completely inaccurate, at least from our side. And also, I have to believe, being in the business 25 years, I've learned more about street sweeping than anybody in this room is ever going to learn. I've probably forgotten more than they're ever going to learn. The costs that you're hearing are not realistic, plain and simple. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I want to say two other things. Firstly, we're still due over $400,000 from the city, and the BA is here. I was wondering if you might be able to comment on when we could expect to be paid for that, since it's well overdue, dating back to 2015. And lastly, I would invite the council, okay, to conduct a cost analysis involving factual information and not scripted dialogue. We'd be willing to come in, sit down with whomever, to open our books, show you what things cost. We're only looking for a fair return on our investment. If they're willing to do the same thing, I think that way, and only that way, are you going to find out which is the better deal, because from a service perspective, we are the better deal without question. But from a cost perspective, we believe that the answer is still the same. That would be Dejana Industries is the better deal, but you would know yourselves. If I'm proven wrong, so be it. We're willing to take that chance, or they. Thank you.
I believe that that's the last speaker, but if, Mr. Lebecki, since you're the consultant for this, this project, would it be possible to send the information in terms of a comparison, in terms of cost, between the private entity and the public entity to the council before we vote on the next contract?
We have the business plan prepared, which outlines the costs associated with each of the options we discussed. And the costs that we based it upon are actual purchase orders and actual contracts, so there's no subjectivity to it. We provided that to the administration, and I'm sure the administration will be glad to provide that when the contract comes before the board for action.
Mr. BA, can you provide that information to the council? Thank you. Any more speakers? No? Can we,
I'm sorry. I was wondering if there could be a comment from the BA about the past due balance that we've been looking for about 3 years. I haven't, but the CFO has tried to on several occasions.
I'm sorry. I've spoken to the company previously. No one has called me. I'm unfamiliar with the 400,000. I'm sure I could get Mr. Arena's contact information in follow-up, but I haven't spoken with anyone from.
Can you follow up with Mr. Arena, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have a quorum, so we're not going to be able to.
We don't need a quorum to end this meeting.
We can walk out.
We can walk out. Thank you. Where did this come from?